All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to the Melanin Margin, the weekly chat show where conversations about race are never off the table. I'm your host, Quaviondre Williams.
And I'm Daquon Wilson.
So let's get into this week's conversation. Daquon, what's hot on the table this week?
So let's start off by talking about Britney Spears and her conservatorship. So in an article on NPR, we found out that hashtag FreeBritney is no longer an activist rallying cry. It is now a fact. The conservatorship that had controlled Britney Spears' finances, personal life, and medical decisions since 2008, and which also controlled by her father, Jamie Spears, for many years was terminated this past Friday afternoon in a Los Angeles courtroom. Judge Brenda Penny said the conservatorship of Spears' person and her estate is no longer required, effective immediately, end quote. For most of the time she was under the conservatorship, the singer has said she masked her true feelings about the situation. But she began speaking out publicly this summer, asking for the legal arrangement to be terminated. The conservatorship was split into two parts: the conservatorship of Spears' estate, which controlled all of her income and financial decisions, and the conservatorship of Spears' person, which was in charge of her health and well being. Jamie Spears had been suspended as conservator of her estate in late September after the singer accused her father of exploiting her. Since then, the conservatorship of her estate had been placed with a certified public accountant named John Zabel, who will stay on briefly to transfer her assets into her trust. So I want to start off by asking, should this conservatorship have lasted 13 years?
Absolutely not. I don't understand where are the guidelines. Like, where is the
Where they
forms?
at?
Like, where I'm searching, I can't seem to find them. And it's really crazy to me because when I heard about this story originally, I didn't really understand what it was about, like why this conservatorship was a thing. Like, I thought it was more of like an agency where they represent Britney, but it's not like, her. I didn't realize how intense this conservatorship was. And so upon like researching this and really getting involved in it, for it to have lasted for 13 years and the guideline and the guideline being this person has this much control for 13 years, it's like most of the time when someone goes through a intense thing, because let's go back 13 years ago when Britney Spears was going through a very difficult time in her life, it makes sense that there was a conservatorship put in place to protect her at first. And I think I think at first I can understand why somebody be like, hey, we need to make sure that you don't make any rash decisions or do anything that could put you in harm's way or do something that might hurt your finances or something like that, like any kind of reckless behavior, because when you're going through a very difficult emotional time, you're not thinking clearly. So you may do something that could effectively have way worse effects on the long hand. So on the long term. So I understand why it was put in place at first. But I think that the guidelines for it just were not there because in no way should this have lasted for a whole 13 years. See, my idea was I thought that a conservatorship or something like this would be institutionalized for a couple of months or maybe a year, and I think that with Britney Spears's money and the way that she had, where she was in her career path at the time, especially, she could afford to have some intensive treatment therapy to get her through that difficult time. And I think that it's just frustrating to me because it's like, okay, a year, maybe 2 years of some therapy and getting her together, and then a slow return to her control. So like at first, we got you. And then it's like after a few months, then it comes to this and it comes to that. So I think that there was not a guideline period that let her know and that let them know, okay, this is the only, you can only control, quote unquote, this person for a certain amount of time, or at least, and I wouldn't say control, I would say direct or help lead this person for a certain amount of time before it returns to them. But I think that was just not the case. What do you think?
I agree with you. I think that 13 years is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
it should not have lasted that long. I get, Britney has had a lot of things that she had to deal with. Like, imagine just like being that type of star where all the spotlight is on you everybody's like in your business for every single little thing, and you have all of that pressure on you all the time, that's going to do a lot of damage to you. So being able to like have something where, you take some time off, you have somebody like
Mm-hmm.
help you out during that time to like make sure you're not doing any rash decisions, because unfortunately we see this a lot of times with a lot of, pop stars like that. When you think about all the different pop stars, like maybe like a Amy Winehouse, who had
Yes.
rose to stardom but could not handle it, and then
Yeah.
made a lot of different decisions for their health and finances that just wasn't good for them. So I completely agree. I think that, if this was like, a year, 2 years max,
Yeah.
and then afterwards maybe like another 6-month addendum if it wasn't going right, but it
Yeah.
should not have been like 13 years. It should have like a specific time limit to end, and you go from there, because at the end of the day, Britney Spears is an adult and she should be able to make decisions on her own. You shouldn't treat her like a child.
I think that was what was really problematic for me, is the fact that it was like, and also I heard that like there were times where she would have her own therapist say, "Hey, like do do the questionnaire and ask me the questions to make me sure that I'm back sane and I'm back in a state of mind where I can actually handle the pressure that I'm being put under." And the therapist was like, "Yeah, girl, you're good." And then she went to bring this before a judge, and the judge was like, "No, we don't know." The judge denied the claims, and so it was really funny. It's not funny, but it's really weird to me that like this person says, "Hey y'all, thank you for helping me during that tough time. I'm good now. Thank you for the assist, but I'm in a good place now. I think I'm ready to take things back into my own, my own autonomy again. I'm ready to receive my full autonomy again. I'm back in a better space now." And it just feels a little bit kind of, it's stupid to me that they would take this route and then not even allow her the opportunity to say, "Hey, I'm done. Like, I'm good here. It's my money. It's my life, and
Mhm.
I'm ready to be back in control of what I need to do. I appreciate the effort that you had for the time that you had it for, but that's done now. I'm in a better place." And there was never that conversation. At least I don't know if there was that conversation never had. And so there is a little bit of muddied waters and how long it was before Britney was like, "I'm good again and I'm ready to be back." So we don't know that specifically. But like I said, I do think that there was something to be said about having a guideline in place that says, we're going to test you, we're going to therapize you and get you into that good space. And if your therapist says, "Okay, you're good to go and we're good to go," and you feel like you're good to go, I feel like what I think was the frustrating part was that she wasn't able to say, "Hey, I'm here and I'm ready and I'm done."
Right.
And I think that's what kind of makes me feel like a little real, like annoyed about it, because it's different if it was like she's not saying anything and she's like, I'm good with y'all doing what I got to do. The fact that she was saying, "Hey, y'all, I'm back. I got this." And for them to still keep this conservatorship going, that's what I think was as problematic as it was. But I also want to ask you, Daquon, do you think that this conservatorship, the idea of one, should be as invasive as it is for that same duration? Like, do you think it should have been invasive at all in the
Not
first
at all.
place?
Absolutely not. I think that when it comes to like, I think this Britney conservatorship has brought to light a lot of problems that we have in our country and in our politics, especially in how we treat people we deem to be suffering from some type of mental health illness or some type of disability. Because there's plenty of different conservatorships that are happening to this day that are
Yeah.
just as invasive, but because it is layperson instead of Britney Spears, it just kind of gets under the bridge. Like, who cares about it? But I think that conservatorships in general should not be invasive. If the point of it is to help a person who is going through something, whether that be mental illness or help somebody who has some type of disability, it should be something that, like I said, helps, not controls. So I think that in these conservatorships, there should be some type of agency that the person should have in order to like continue it. It should not go all into their lives where somebody controls everything about you. That's ridiculous.
And that's what we're looking for, agency. I love how you brought that up, because like one of the things that I also found in this whole debate, in this whole conversation about whether or not this conservatorship is good for Britney or not, is that Britney also made claims about the conservatorship not allowing her to have kids. She said, and I quote, that I have an IUD inside of myself so I don't get pregnant. They don't want me to have any children anymore. She alleged this, but the facts are like, the fact that they're able to, because we don't know for a fact, they said it's allegedly, but I don't think that she would say it unless it was true. But and it just really baffles me that in this particular situation, they're able to dictate whether or not you have a IUD inside of your body. They're able to dictate whether or not, what kind of treatment you receive. You know what I'm saying? They're able to dictate whether or not what you can and cannot spend your money on, where you can and cannot go, what you can and cannot post on your social media. And like I said, I do think that, and back to your point about as invasive as it, I don't think that I agree with you in that fact. I do not think it should have been as invasive as it was. I do think that the only thing that you really need to make sure of is someone's financial health, if they're going through a tough time, to make sure they're not spending money on frivolous things. So I would say more of a checks and balances system, being like, what are you trying to buy? And we can go through why that could work and why that might not be the best move for you. And I would think, as far as body autonomy goes, I think as long as that person is not a threat to themselves or to someone else, that should not be an issue. I think maybe checkups, making sure they go get the health, because some people going through depression don't take care of their bodies or don't take care of their things. The people who are struggling with mental health don't take care of the important things, like getting the checkups they need, getting the dentist appointments, getting the eye appointments, all those things. So I think that in that particular case, making sure those appointments are scheduled and maybe adhered to, I understand that element to it, but that should be as far as it goes. I think that when it went, the fact that they were able to make those kind of body decisions about her, I think that that to me was just a step too far.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
So also on the docket this week, we have Adele versus Taylor Swift. Now, Kat Tenenbarge, a reporter from Internet Insider, recently released a tweet on November 15th stating that Adele and Taylor Swift are almost the same age, but write songs about heartbreak. Yet you don't see the same kind of mudslinging against Adele that Taylor continues to get after 15 years of being in her career. Taylor really got the short end of the stick in terms of being the poster child for other women's internalized misogyny, as well as all the same tired misogynistic tropes about women and songwriting and emotions. Now, this tweet sparked a heated debate from both Adele and Taylor Swift's fan bases. Twitter user @QueenAdeleSlays stated, "So basically, your solution for the eradication of misogyny depends on Adele getting the same treatment as Taylor. Nobody knows about Adele's personal life at all, and that's the reason nobody has anything on her to get mud splashed on her. Taylor has had famous relationships. Think." Also, Twitter user @Cal_K7 responded, stating that, "I've always wondered about this myself. My theory is that Adele has consistently had a mature sound that's allowed her to appeal to a diverse demographic, whereas Taylor Swift has always felt more to her age. So her fan base was primarily young girls for most of her career." Now, I just want to ask you, Daquon, do you think that this comment is justified or an unwarranted comparison between the singers?
Child, when I saw this, I was like confused. Like, I was confusion because like I see the thought process. I see where like the line of thought went, but at the same time I'm like, why did you go there in the first place? Like, when I think about Taylor Swift and Adele and what they sing, genre-wise, completely different genres,
Yep.
which means completely different audiences.
Yep.
Secondly, you know, like the tweet mentioned, Adele is not really public about her relationships like that. Like, you don't
No.
see Adele like in all different types of tabloids about her new boo or whatever, and she's not dating these high profile celebrities. But Taylor Swift, you see that she is dating very popular celebrities that everybody knows. And so everybody's in their relationship. So I think that when you are much more in the public eye, of course, there's going to be more criticism of that relationship. Like, you don't see too much of like what Beyonce has going on behind closed doors because she's like gone.
Yeah.
And same with Adele, like you only get so much that she lets you in for. So I
Yeah.
think that these comments were just like out of the blue and just like no need for comparison. Like, why are we pitting women against each other all the time? Like, I feel like, especially thinking about Taylor Swift's fan base and how defensive they are about Taylor, it's just cause for just like stirring up drama, stirring the pot.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think my whole question here is, why does she feel the need to bring another successful female artist into the conversation rather than talk about the real issue that's society as a whole? That has nothing to do with Adele. Like, several male singers make songs about heartbreak and breakups and no one bats an eye, yet female singers do it and suddenly people dog walk them because they think it's all they have to offer. Like, it felt like, in a way, even though she might not have intended for it to do this, it kind of felt like she was trying to bring someone else down to bring another person up. Like, there's no need to bring Adele's name into this conversation at all. Like, how about just say Taylor Swift has received so much backlash for talking about her experiences. Leave Taylor alone. That's all you had to say. But you felt the need to bring Adele into this conversation as if Adele has anything to do with why society treats Taylor Swift the way that they do. And I think that it's so unfair to Taylor Swift and Adele, because in the comment section, and I've read a lot of the tweets after the fact, that the responses where they're like, there's no need to compare between Adele and Taylor Swift. Adele is this and a blah, blah, blah. And like I said, I'm a very big fan of Adele. She is that bitch. Okay,
period.
But I just feel like Adele and Taylor Swift are very different artists, and they have a very different kind of sound that they're trying to bring to the table. And both of those sounds are valid. And I think it's very problematic to bring Adele in that conversation, in that tweet, because regardless of what you intended to say, because I think the intent was positive, but the reaction from what you said, you knew what you were doing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it's very hard for me to think that you didn't think that anybody was going to say anything about Adele in those comment section. Like, you were going to bring this healthy conversation about why Taylor Swift receives all this, but it's suddenly like, oh yeah, Adele doesn't have any of that. And that baffles me on a whole nother level, because let's be all the way 100. Adele fully gets it might not be the same publicized mudslinging, but she absolutely does get a lot of backlash for singing songs about breakups. And people always like, oh girl, I want to hear Adele because I want to hear all that sad stuff. She always makes sad songs. Those are her. They have the same conversations about Adele that they do about Taylor Swift. And it's because of this larger problematic entity that is patriarchy.
Amen. And I also think that, we also have to bring up that, Taylor Swift and Adele look different. Like, I can't think about this conversation and not think about, the ways which body image issues also have something to play. Because, yeah, sure, Adele wasn't getting publicly criticized about her relationships, but everybody had something to say about Adele and her weight.
Oh, yes.
Especially even after, like, she lost weight, you were like, oh, Adele, you look so good. And it's like,
as if she wasn't always that bitch. As if she wasn't always stunning.
She has always been stunning, but everybody always has something to say about how she looked. And so I think that's a missing component of this conversation. And it's like, yeah, sure, she might not be getting the public backlash in one way, but she's still feeling the effects of misogyny every day because she is a woman in music.
And I think that's what was missing in this conversation, is that she was making it seem as though Adele is just praised and that's all. And yes, Adele has won many and several Grammys and has had a very prolific career, and so has Taylor. And I think that the conversation here that was missing, like you said, bringing up the fat phobia, is that yes, Adele may not receive as much mudslinging about her relationship life or her heartbreak songs as Taylor Swift does, but I think that the mudslinging more than makes up for it by the fat phobia and the fat comments and fat shaming comments that she gets before she lost all that weight. They were going in about Adele's just this and she's too big and she just stands there and just sings. She doesn't actually do anything. And so there was so much criticism about Adele just of not being a dancer and doing all that stuff, just singing, letting her voice do the work. And
first of all, even if she is just standing there, like that is still a show. Like, she is still singing the house down.
And it's like it's really incumbent upon like people to really start. I think that this comment that she made was not very well thought out. I think it was one of those moments where you're like, girl, actually, let me come to bat for Taylor real quick. And it very much felt like she was a Swiftie going like, girl, let me read people real quick, because how dare you come for Taylor and blah, 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 blah. And I think that there is a way to defend your fave without bringing someone else down to do it. And whether or not that was her intention, that is exactly how that's how the internet took it. And we know how if you just say Beyonce and Lady Gaga go, and you already know in the comment section, the Lady Gaga fans and the Beyonce fans are going to be fighting. And there's no reason to do that, because the reality is Adele is a talented, amazing, prolific singer. Taylor Swift is an amazing, talented, prolific singer. And whether or not you like Taylor Swift's music, whether or not you like Adele's weight, it doesn't matter. They are both talent powerhouse vocalists. If you say, Taylor Swift receives all this mudslinging, but baby, her check is still cashing. So I promise you, Taylor's not pressed.
Ooh.
Period. Ooh. So people, and the thing about this, I think what people don't understand is that people are going to talk shit regardless of what Adele does, what Taylor Swift does. People are going to talk shit about female artists. And I wanted to ask you, Daquon, like, do you think that this comment actually fed really into this idea of this misogyny that Adele receives no mudslinging at all? Like, do you think it feeds into that? Like, it kind of stokes the fires of patriarchy?
Yeah, it completely does. I think that it's one of those things where it's like, this comment basically been like, oh, Taylor Swift, has all of this misogyny towards her. Adele doesn't. Why is that? Like, why are we trying to get somebody, like, first of all, she already faces misogyny, period.
Yeah.
But like, why are
you
then exactly? Then why are you trying to make misogyny happen more? Basically, that, like, it doesn't make sense to me. So I think that when it came to the comment, it was just like very off-putting, because you could have had so many different conversations that did not involve Adele, but you decided to bring Adele in. And I think it goes back to like what we were talking about last week when it comes to celebrity culture. So many people think it's like this zero-sum game where it's like, oh, if my fave goes up, somebody else's fave has to go down, and vice versa. And it's like, that's not how life works. Two people can be successful. Women can be successful in the same industry
simultaneously. I don't understand why. And I think I've seen that a lot. I want to ask you this too. Like, I've seen this a lot in culture, and like the Cardi B versus Nicki Minaj situation, the Little Kim versus Nicki Minaj, and blah blah blah. And I'm just kind of like, I don't understand why. Like you said before, this isn't American Horror Story Coven, okay? If a new Supreme rises, the other one's not going to fall. This is not that kind of reality right now that we're living in. We're living in a time where people can celebrate your fave. Celebrate that person and be like, yes, they are the baddest bitch in the game. And if they don't win a Grammy for that album and somebody else does, has nothing to do with that person. That has nothing. Right. I think that is what I think really frustrates me the most, is that what do you think that this idea that that if somebody else wins an award and my fave doesn't win it, that means they're trash and I got to tell them, like, where do you think that comes from? Like, this instant attacking.
I think it just comes from the way we view celebrities. I think that over the years, celebrities have gotten more to be just like, these people that we see doing amazing things, and more to like our people. Like, we see ourselves in celebrities. Or even if we
Mm.
don't see ourselves in them, we just iconify them in a way, and we think we have access to them in a way that we could just say everything, especially with like social media and how that kind of blows up. Like, we think that if our celebrity is not, you know, praised, then they're being declaimed or something like that. And it's like, that's not how it works. And unfortunately, people will go on social media and feel like, oh, well, like, this celebrity is my best friend. Like, they are my idol. Like, they are
Yeah.
everything to me. And it's like, firstly, get a personality outside of your faves.
Actually,
Secondly, secondly, don't attack other people just because your didn't get something. Like, it's not their decision whether who gets it or not. So like, why are you focusing on some other celebrity, some other singer, when you could be addressing the industry as a whole, when you could be addressing the problematic and all of that other stuff as a whole?
exactly.
And so let's talk about our final topic for this week. In an article written on Showbiz Cheat Sheet, we find out that Aaron Sorkin has been criticized for not casting Debra Messing in Being the Ricardos. Fans believe that Messing was a Lucille Ball lookalike and is a sitcom star in her own right. People online question Nicole Kidman's ability to play one of the funniest women in the world compared to Messing's. There's no denying that Messing is a Lucille Ball doppelganger, and Messing proved she could recreate I Love Lucy scenes when Will and Grace paid homage to the sitcom. Earlier in 2021, when Kidman was only rumored to have been in the cast, Messing started campaigning for the role on Twitter. And because of their likeness, fans clamored around the actor online hoping she would be cast. But Kidman got the role. And the support for for Messing only grew when the first photos of Kidman as Lucille Ball came out, as well as the first Being the Ricardos trailer. But on November 15th, Messing commented on the backlash in support of Kidman. She said, quote, "I am very humbled by the outpouring from my fans. I ask that you all join me in supporting at Nicole Kidman as she brings our Lucy to life. Nicole is an extraordinary artist whom I greatly admire and respect. I have no doubt that she will shine. Hashtag Being the Ricardos. Hashtag We All Love Lucy." End quote. However, the issue here is the delayed response time Debra Messing had before coming to Nicole Kidman's defense.
Hmm.
Because Debra Messing was so involved in trying to be a part of this project, her silence when it was official that Nicole Kidman got the part made a lot of noise. This begs an interesting question. Do you think that Debra Messing should have made an announcement the moment the official casting was announced?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot stress this enough. Like, it just really baffled me that there was not one made on her Twitter account, especially when she was going so hard for this role. And it's like, once you find out that someone has gotten that role that you wanted, it's time to bow out. It's time to say, all right, I didn't get it, y'all. We tried and it didn't happen. That's great. Y'all have, I hope that she does amazing on the role like she did in that Twitter that tweet that she made. And I think it's just like, I think that because I think it was about a week or two after the official casting was announced before she actually made a response, and like the fans were going in on Nicole Kidman, and I mean heavily going in on this woman. And it just really got me together, because I was like, I don't care. Debra Messing is very active on Twitter, so I
Mm-hmm.
have no doubt in my mind that she was aware of it. Like, I don't have any doubt in my mind that she was like, "Oh, I'm just so busy." Like, I saw you could see her Twitter being active throughout that time, and for her not to, or maybe not pay any attention to that, I understand as an actor and as a performer. I understand being hurt. I understand being like, damn, like I wanted that role so fucking bad. Like, recently, this brings up a really good memory for me. I was in the August with some monologue competition. I was made it to the top 12 in the state of Georgia. And I was so excited because we were like, we're going to leave it on the stage. And I was on that performance. I did all I needed to do. I practiced. I worked on it. I gave that performance my bitch. I ate that. Okay, I was proud of myself. And so when the announcement was made of who were going to be the final two to go to New York for the final last round, and my name wasn't called, there was a moment of like, damn. And right after that, it's like, congratulations, because I know you ate that shit too. And you deserve that spot just as much as I did. But it just so happens that it was your time and your chance and your opportunity. And I think that it's very problematic to not be a team player, because we all are trying to receive these opportunities. We're all fighting for the same chance. And sometimes other people get those chances, and that's okay. It fucking sucks. And it's okay to be like, fuck that bitch in your home and at your house when you're at home, whatever. Being like, girl, fuck her. I could have did that shit better, like
Right.
that. And, because we all have those, you have those moments every now and then, but that's a feeling. That's a feeling that you can go through for a moment. That's a feeling that you can save for later. That's a feeling that you can have on yourself and in your mind. But when you're in front of someone, or you're in front of the person who did win, it's like, pay that person their respect, because you know that they worked probably just as hard as you, if not harder. And I think that there's this litmus of like, if someone gets a role, that means that they're better than the other person. That's not what this is. And I've been seeing in this conversation, it's the reason why I wanted to bring this to the table this week, was that it pissed me off that so many people are like, well, if I had a choice between Nicole Kidman and Debra Messing, I would obviously choose Nicole Kidman. It's kind of like, let's stop doing that. Let's stop beating people down, because Debra Messing is just as good of an actress as Nicole Kidman. The problem is, in this situation, she was not the one they wanted. And that's fine. That's okay. And it just breaks my heart that we can get to a point where we're like, you know what? I think the real tea is they're both equally amazing actresses in different regards and in different positions. And I think that in this particular case, not just Debra Messing not speaking up, but also the conversations that I saw surrounding the Debra Messing versus Nicole Kidman situation was very much so trying to compare the actress's talent. And it's like, this actress is talented. This actress is talented. This actress got the opportunity. That does not mean that this actress is bad, or that she's not good enough, or that she should be compared to Nicole Kidman's her list of accomplishments. Stop doing that shit. Like, stop. I'm sorry, Daquon. Go ahead.
No, and I agree. I think it goes back to just what we were saying about Adele and Taylor Swift. Like, you don't have, like, this doesn't have to be a zero-sum game. It doesn't have to be, oh, if she gets the role, she's the talented one and the other person's not talented.
Yes.
Because they're both talented. And I think that, that's kind of my problem with the situation, is that, like, we have to get out of this mindset that, like, it's all about your fave and all about your decision. Like, at the end of the day, a decision was made. You did not make that decision. Therefore, your opinion didn't need to go into that decision. Like, when we are thinking about what goes on when it comes to casting, like, I don't understand how all of these people who have never worked in the entertainment industry at all have so much to say, because, like, it comes down to more than just like who's talented, because when you're dealing with something of that level, everybody who's auditions is going to be talented. It comes down to who's going to work well with the director, who's going to work well with all the different people on the cast, and also what type of story is the director trying to tell? What type of spin is it going to be? Because it could be easy to just like have a Lucille Ball lookalike and make it exactly like how it was before. But sometimes directors don't want to do that. Sometimes directors want to have like this kind of spin on it where it's slightly different, but still really referential to the original. So like, you don't know what happened at that casting table. You don't know the conversations that happened. So therefore, you should not be talking down people because of that decision. And I do think that it's a little irresponsible of Messing not to have said something earlier, because when you have that platform and all of that which comes with it, like, you have to say something. You have to do more than the average person when you are considered to be more than average. Like, yeah, sure, when I'm have like, I think about like when I did like marching band or something like that, and we had a competition, and like we worked our asses off to like give the best show we can,
Yeah.
but we didn't get, first place or whatever. Like, at the grand scheme of things, like, who are we? Like, if we didn't went and left and like didn't say congratulations to the other team, like, whatever. But when you have that platform, and
Yes.
when if you don't set that precedent, your fans are going to go wild. That is irresponsible, and you should have said something earlier, even if it's just like, congrats, girl, like, love that you got it. Even if you're still like in your feelings, like
Yeah.
something very like off the surface, surface level, just like get it out there and like deal with your emotions.
It takes nothing to have good sportsmanship. It takes nothing. And I really love the way you said that. You said that so eloquently, bitch. Like, you fuck it up. Like, you fuck that. Yeah, you better say that.
Well,
Like,
I'm kind
it
of a
was
poet.
like, it's really, like you said, it's irresponsible. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, yes, I understand feelings are involved, and we're mad because we're like, damn it, I wanted that role, like, or I wanted this thing so bad. But it's like, I think that in a certain position, and like you said, in my position in that situation that I told you about, I said to that person, like, hey, congratulations, you ate that shit and you did that. I know you're talented, and I saw that performance, and you deserved what you got. You know what I'm saying? And like, even if I felt like, dang, I know I deserved it too, I'm not gonna sit there and just not say nothing to that person, because I know that they worked just as hard as me. And we have no idea what Nicole Kidman did to get that role. We don't know if she campaigned just as hard as Debra did beforehand, and was like, hey, director, hey, I want to be a part of this. I've done my research. I've done this. I've done that. So we don't know the work that she took in to get to where she was in that position. And so I think that I really think that it was incumbent upon Miss Messing to make that statement and say, like, even if that shit hurts you every fucking time you press that key to say congratulations, it is good sportsmanship and it is good form, especially in the position that you're in, to say, listen, congratulations. I know that you're talented. I know you're going to do well with this role, and I am so happy for you. And end it right then and there. And I really just bring up this really interesting question. Like, do you think it is the job of a celebrity to check their fans when they get out of line? Like, do you think that silence, regardless of the intent, is co-signing the response that they're getting?
Yeah, I think that silence is a form of communication. Like, you being silent on an issue is a communication on the issue. I think Martin Luther King says that there are times when silence becomes betrayal. And I think that really speaks to how you being silent on something tells the world how you feel about a certain issue.
Exactly.
It may not be like race or anything like that. It may be something, you didn't get a role and you're upset about it. And you being silent for people who are attacking the person who got the role, that is a form of co-signing, because you are not doing anything, A, to stop it, and B, you're not doing anything, even to like help out the person who's getting all this hate. Because like, I think that in a situation like that, you not only have an obligation to check your fans, you have an obligation to check in with the person who's been attacked, because you don't know how that affects them. Yeah, they are celebrities. You have to deal with it, and it comes with the territory. But at the same time, if you got a role that you have been waiting for and you're so excited, and then all you see is hate, that's going to get into your head, and that's going to affect how you perform in that role.
Exactly. I fully agree. I could have said it better myself. It really is incumbent upon people to understand, like, it's not just about checking your fans. It's about defending the people that your fans are going ham on. And I think that in that situation, I think that Debra did make a decision. And even though it might not have been something that she did intentionally, I think that you should have been aware of what was going on with that Ricky Ricardo situation in the TV show. I mean, all that good stuff in the movie, and realized, all right, when it gets announced that she got the role, I'm going to let that go. And I'm going to say, congratulations, girl. Y'all leave her alone, because she's going to fucking eat that shit. And then leave it at that. Even if you think you did, even if you think you would, you still say, listen, girl, you got this. Leave her alone. And if anything, support her. And that would have gone miles. And imagine that would have opened up another door for Miss Messing. for another
Mm.
opportunity. But that is what it is. Now, I also wanted to say that the table is always hot with the current events and social issues, but sometimes it can get a little intense. So let's turn down the temp, take a breather, and get into this week's topic cool down. Daquon?
So, for this week's topic cool down, I want to pose the question: do you believe that everyone deserves a second chance? More specifically, can you forgive and trust a close person who's wronged you?
That is a question right there. I do think that there is a such thing as a second chance for, but I think it all depends on the transgression. I think that
Mm,
whatever you did depends on whether or not you deserve a second chance. And it's not just about that. We've talked about this before in our episode Apology Plus Action, that there is a such thing as apologizing and also atoning for what you've done. And so
right.
let's say that you stole from me and you're like, hey, I am so sorry that I did that. And it's like, okay, well, sorry is not enough because you still stole from me. You know, if you return what you stole, if you try to donate more money to me or give me more things to try to say, listen, I want to let you know that I was in a really dark place or whatever, that is a way or a form of atonement. And I think it is all, I just really think that it just depends because there, especially when it comes to close people, like people that you love and care about, when someone breaks your heart or when someone breaks your trust, more specifically, it is a scar and not a wound. It becomes, because if somebody off the street does something,
Mm,
you're kind of like, man, fuck that. Like, I'm good. Like, water off a
right.
duck back, brush it off my shoulder, I'm fine. But like when someone that you're close to, like a lover or a mother or a sister or a brother or somebody in a really, really close friend, does something that breaks the covenant of your bond together, it's really hard to give that person a second chance, especially if there is not the atonement process taking place. If someone has done you wrong and they are truly sorry about it and they have truly made amends for their transgression, I do think that a part of that covenant is also understanding that, you know what, people are not perfect and people will make mistakes and that's okay. But I do think that if someone is not making the proper amends or proper atonement, I do think that not everybody's owed a second chance. And I think that and I think Bob the Drag Queen said this in Sibling Rivalry podcast, and I thought was so fucking it. Like, you can want someone's forgiveness and you can do all the amends and the atonement, and they still cannot forgive you. They can,
Right.
they reserve the right to not forgive you. And you have to accept that. And I think that people a lot of times, especially family members or people who are in love, and like I said, that covenant of connection, that deeper connection, I think that there's a problem where people think that because you're my brother, because you're my sister, my mother, my father, my cousin, my aunt, my best friend, my lover, because you are whatever you are to me, you think that you deserve a second chance. And that's not the case. You don't deserve anything. If I choose to give it to you, that's my decision. But just because you want it does not mean I have to give it to you. And I think that there's something to be said about that. I think that people really have to have an understanding of like, yes, I can forgive you. Doesn't mean I need to owe you a second chance, you know?
Yeah, and I'll just say I agree. I am somebody who has a Scorpio moon. So when it comes to emotions, like
Yeah.
on the inside, it can be very intense for me. So I think
Mhm.
that like as somebody who grew up like being somebody that was like very open and very trusting,
Mhm.
I've had a lot of people take my kindness and my trustingness as a weakness and
Yeah.
exploited that in my life. And so that literally, made me put up a lot of different walls because I was like, I can't just like keep getting hurt time and time again. And I think
Mm.
that that's a part of this conversation that I don't think is said a lot of times is that yeah, sure, you can do everything for somebody to forgive you, but sometimes them not like forgiving you is what's protecting them. That they're not
Ooh.
forgiving somebody is you protecting yourself because you have been hurt time and time again. And yeah, it sounds bad. Like, yeah, you have to unpack everything, but just because you wronged me does not mean that you deserve to walk back into my life. Like, I can be like, you know what, you did this. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. Like, we can move on past that. But if our relationship changes, then that's not me being like, oh, this is your second chance. Like, there's so many different situations where if you do something to me, our friendship, our relationship can never be the same again because you broke that trust. And it's so hard to trust again after your trust was broken by somebody close. So I think that, like you said, there's no thing that you deserve a second
Yeah.
chance. Like, I am granting you a second chance because I believe in our relationship can be much more. And I believe that we can recover
Move
from
past this.
something.
Yeah.
Exactly. But there's just like, and then there's just certain things that like you can't move past. There are certain things that are unforgivable and like no matter what you do, you're never going to have that second chance.
And actually, I kind of want to push back a little bit. I don't think that forgiveness is the word we should use anymore. Like, I think that because a lot of times people say forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you, right? And
Right.
like they say, a lot of times resentment is you. I heard this quote, I thought it was really powerful too. Like, they say that resentment or like or like being angry at somebody is drinking poison and hoping that the other person dies. And I just really bringing it back to that forgiveness aspect. I don't think that we need to forgive people as so much as releasing that pain.
Mhm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because to forgive someone is, I mean, the connotation of forgiveness is I'm releasing you from your fault in the matter. It's the connotation that we give to it. It's kind of like, if I forgive you for something, that means that we're okay now. And it's like, no, that's not what I want to say. It's kind of like, this is really brings it back to a little bit deeper for me, is that my fathers, my stepfather who was in my life, and my biological father, both hurt me in one of the worst ways you can a child, and that's abandoning them and leaving them. And one of the things that I realized about forgiveness and about that idea was that I will never forgive them for what they did, because it's some things that are unforgivable. But I do
Right.
think that holding on to that pain of what they did and the anger and the hate, it eats at your soul. It eats you out from the inside. And what I had to realize is, like, I will never forgive them, but I can't hate them anymore.
Mm.
And that's what I had to learn, was that, oh, we're supposed to be cooling down, but I'm kind of getting but it's like, in life, you have to let that pain go. You have to release it, because if you don't, it will eat you alive. So it's not so much forgiving. It's like letting that go. It's like, you hurt me, and that pain will never, can never be undone. No matter what you do. If my fathers came back to my life right now and were like, hey, we're good now, I fucked up, but I'm back now, you will never be able to make amends for that 13-year-old person that you hurt, that 14, 15, 20-year-old person that you hurt by leaving them behind. You will never be able to make up for that. But I can release myself of that hatred and anger towards you, because at the end of the day, it's my life that I have to live, and it happened to me, but it does not control or define me. And it does not define how I'm going to move about in my future. And I think
Right.
that that's what we're getting here in this conversation here, is like, it's not, you don't owe anybody a second chance. You don't
You
owe
don't owe
anybody.
anybody a part of yourself.
Exactly. And I think that that's the issue that we're seeing, is that people are not trying to allow for that, saying like, hey, I may forgive you to heal myself, but we will never be back to where we once were. And you're going to have to accept that and move forward,
Yeah.
So So many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So it's time for a change, honey. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. So, in an article, 26 Black Americans you don't know but should, they detail the accomplishments of Maria P. Williams. Now, Williams was the first Black woman to produce, write, and act in her own movie in 1923, The Flames of Wrath. And thanks to her, we have female directors and producers like Oprah Winfrey, Ava DuVernay, Issa Rae, and Shonda Rhimes. Now, beyond film, the former Kansas City teacher was also an activist and detailed her leadership skills in the book she authored, My Work in Public Sentiment, in 1916. Black women, baby.
Who constantly raising the bar.
And doing it flawlessly.
And so for my We Did That, in an article, 28 Civil Rights Leaders of Past and Present, Mackenzie Jean-Philippe tells us about the life of Pauli Murray, who was an author, lawyer, women's rights activist, and the first Black person to earn a Doctor of the Science of Law degree from Yale. Many of Murray's essays, poems, and books, which include Negroes Are Fed Up, Dark Testament, and States' Laws on Race and Color, were considered essential foundational works for the Civil Rights Movement. Murray also co-founded CORE, the Congress of Racial Equity, and the National Organization for Women in 1966, alongside many noted feminists of the time, and was appointed to President John F. Kennedy's Committee on Civil and Political Rights.
Honestly, like, it's just so amazing to hear these things. And I love this segment of our show so much. Like, just hearing about these history facts that we've never even known about, or some of us have never even heard of, is such a beautiful thing. So, as always, thank you all so much for watching, and please keep the conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. And if you are listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review us on whatever platform you are using. If you want to follow us on social media, our handles are at Andre Talks a Lot and at Daquon950. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram at the Melanin Margin for updates of new content. We'll see you all this time on the 6th, because we're going to take a break for Thanksgiving, but we'll be back, baby. And we'll be back fresher and revitalized from our holiday.
Goodbye now.